A therapist is like a shidduch, right? You have to have the right therapist for the right client. And then Jordan Peterson says that Freud had Freudian clients, Freudian patients, and Jung had Jungian patients, meaning the people that really, working with them in the pathologizing way that Sigmund Freud did, they came to him. The divine providence sent him there. And with Jung, he got people that were more into dreams and symbols and stories. Because Jungian therapy is all about the symbols and the stories. Harav, yeah. Yeah, so naturally I'm very, very inclined towards that thinking like Jung. And so Jung, so let me ask you this, when we, the way we think about things, the way we work, so you can think about things in a cognitive way, you can connect to things in a cognitive way, in a thinking way, you can connect to things through an emotional way, but there's another sort of way. Let me ask you a question, right? A fire truck is big and red, and fire trucks we have over here, we have them all over the world, they're big and red. In the 1930s, there was a proposition to make fire trucks green, because they found that you can actually see green much further away. The red kind of ends early on, but green you can see from further away. How does that feel to you guys? A green fire truck.
I grew up with yellow fire trucks.
Okay, so we right away feel it feels wrong. Why does it feel wrong? Why does it feel wrong to us? Why doesn't it doesn't connect? Something here doesn't make sense. Okay, the symbolizes. What are we doing over here? What language are we speaking? We're speaking archetypes.
Yes.
These are archetypes. We're connecting from an intuitive way. A lot of times you'll say, I have a gut feeling. It's a little bit of a different type of intuition. Jung says they're archetypes that come from above, and they are instincts that come from the bottom. There are only two instincts. There's the instinct of the will to live and the will to die. The thanatos and the eros. The eros is the will to live, and the thanatos is the will to die, the will to destroy. And it connects for me, I'm saying this because yesterday what you spoke about sounded very similar to the thanatos, that the instinct that comes from the bottom that kind of pushes towards the destructive patterns. So to me that connects. Maybe it doesn't really connect for you, but we want to focus more on the archetypes that come from above. Now they say that it's like the light spectrum, and you have what we can see is the rainbow colors. The infrared, the lower reds, are like the instincts from the bottom, and the ultraviolets that we can't see from above are like the archetypes that come from above. And the archetypes are this motivation towards certain things, this pull that we have towards certain things in our life. And actually I have a paper I want to hand out, but I first want to tell you a story. And the story, I didn't really prepare something written what I'm going to say. I heard what you guys said, and I kind of fixed it in my mind in a certain way. And so one of the things, so Shalvi yesterday spoke about Rabbi Nachman a few times, and that connected very well to what I wanted to speak about, that Jung speaks about. Now, when we speak about the archetypes, this motivation from above, what Jung said is that we're connecting on a different level. The collective unconscious. There's a collective unconscious that we all go through, and you'll find, I don't know, the symbol for medicine, right? The nachash nachoshes, right? So it's the snake, the copper snake that we mentioned in the Torah, or maybe it's the god Asclepius. The god Asclepius is the god of medicine that the Greeks believed in, and he also had that staff with the snake wrapped around it. And so you can see that's kind of universal, and also the Indians have the snake wrapping around the Kundalini, maybe it's also connected. So you do. Right. I started with the Moshe Rabbeinu. I started with the Torah one. That's right. You see kind of symbols that are all around the world. And so there's this collective unconscious. There's this, and it's a live thing. It's some people call it the internet, the inside net that we have, that we all connect to. And it's a fascinating thing. And so you mentioned Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman, I think, speaks explicitly about the collective unconscious. He writes about Mordechai. Right? Purim's going to come up in a few months, eventually. And so we have Mordechai, who's worried about what's going on with Esther, and he goes to Shar Beis Hanashim, a place where the women are, to listen in to hear what's going on with Esther. So Rabbi Nachman says that he's listening in. Esther is kind of the relationship between us and God. It's the Shekhinah. And he's listening in. And how is he listening in? He's listening to regular, Goyish, non-Jewish women that are telling their stories to each other. And through their myths, he can tell what's going on, what the relationship between Am Yisrael and Hashem is. That means that this is really the collective unconscious, what he speaks about over here. You know, Mordechai had Ruach HaKodesh. He had a spiritual way to connect to God. He didn't use that. He was one of the greatest rabbis in Torah. He didn't use that. He used the maids that are setting out beds, that are cleaning out towels, that are doing, and he listened to their stories, to the myths they tell each other, and through that he could work out what the relationship between Am Yisrael and Hashem was, which is, you know, this is really the way we speak about the collective unconscious. And by the way, Rabbi Nachman came here in 1799. He was here in the harbor of Akko. Those who came on the tour, we were right by the harbor, and Rabbi Nachman was there on a boat. He was actually trapped here for 3 weeks because Napoleon attacked just then. So he was trapped for 3 weeks in Akko. Eventually he managed to get out. So there's a lot of Rabbi Nachman's influences here as well. That's not what you want. That's he didn't want that. Nobody wanted what he experienced. That was not a very nice.
Without the hotels.
I want to tell you a story that Rabbi Nachman says. This is not sometimes I tell a Breslev people, I have a story from Rabbi Nachman. They're like, we know all the stories. So this is not a very known story. It's written later on by one of his Talmidim. It's one of Rav Zevin's books. And so I'll tell you the story, and then I'll give out the handout, and we'll try and hear what archetypes are playing out over here. We're focusing on character archetypes and less about the symbol or situational archetypes, which are a little different. So the story goes like this. Many, many years ago in a faraway land, there was a poor person, and this poor person could barely afford to put food on the table. And his wife says to him, there's an astrologer in town, a chozah b'kochavim, a woman that could look in the stars and tell you about yourself. You have to go and speak to her. I don't want to go. You have to. I don't want to. Eventually, he said, "Fine, I'll go." And he went and he sat down in front of her. "No, what can you tell me about my mazal, about looking in the stars? What can you tell me?" So she says, "You, my friend, are intended to be a thief. You're supposed to be a thief. I can see it very clearly in the way I don't know how you look in the stars, how you work out the constellations. You are supposed to be a thief. There's not too much you can do about it. That's what's intended to be." He goes home. He doesn't tell his wife what happened. She says, "No, what'd she say?" He doesn't want to tell her. Eventually, he said, "Fine, I'll tell you." She said, "I'm going to be a thief. But I don't want to be a thief. I want to be a righteous man. I don't want to steal. I'd rather be a poor person or be a thief." She says, "I'm with you on that." And time goes by. A while later, she says to her husband, "We don't have enough food. How are we going to make it through the next few days? You have to go and steal. You just need to steal a little bit, just that we can make it." So, "I don't want to do it." "You need to. You have to." So he says, "Fine." He goes to the local market, and he walks right up to the register. Okay, this is you have to imagine how it is. Probably not a register. Probably somebody with like a sack of coins. He goes up and he takes out one coin, and Nobody says anything, nobody sees it. It doesn't bother anybody because he is supposed to be a thief. So he's so natural at this. And he takes the money, he goes home, and the family can eat. A while goes by, and winter's coming. She's like, no, winter's coming. And so she says, we don't have coats for our kids. We have 5 kids. Each coat costs 1 coin. You have to steal 5 coins. 5 coins is a lot. She said, do you want our kids to die from cold? If we don't have coats, they're not going to make it. You have to. He said, you know what? You're right. I have to. So he goes to the local market, and he meets somebody else over there that's also a thief. And they start talking. The guy says, I'm a professional thief. And he says, well, my muzzle is to be a thief. So he says, well, we need to collaborate then. We need to work together. And he says, fine, you're right, but we can't steal from the local market. We're going to bankrupt them. So they look up at the top of the hill and they see the palace. Still, the king has a lot of money. So they go up to the palace together and they walk through, and the guards don't even notice them because his muzzle is to be a thief. And also his partner now, I guess it goes together. He goes with his muzzle. And they go in and they steal the king's, the king has an inauguration clothes, so fancy clothes, and they steal 2 pairs of clothing, 2 kind of jackets or something, and so then the professional thief says, I get the bigger jacket. You get the smaller one because I'm the professional thief. He says, no, you're not. No. So who are we going to ask to work this out? Let's ask the king himself. So they walked into the king's bedroom, and he's sleeping there, and the people around, and they take the king with his bed out of the room, and nobody notices because his muzzle is to be the thief. And they wake up the king, and they say, King, well, what do you think? And they ask him the question, and the king's half sleeping, and he says, well, for sure, the guy who his muzzle is to be the thief, he should get the bigger jacket because the professional would not manage to get anywhere near the king. And then they put him back in the room, they go away, and the king wakes up in the morning, and his fancy clothes are missing, and then he says, oh my gosh, that wasn't a dream, that really happened. And we need to do something about this now. And so the men are talking, and the king says, just send out to the nearby town the guy who his muzzle is to be the thief needs to come to me, and I'm going to forgive him for whatever he did. And if he doesn't, then then we have to find him. It's going to be bad. So he hears about this, and the ani, the guy with the muzzle to be the thief, says, okay, I'll go and I'll hand myself in.
So honest.
Yeah, he's so honest.
He's a thief, not a liar.
So he goes up to the king, and the king says, listen, whatever you did, it's in the past. I forgive you. But I have a job for you now. I have a big issue with my cardinal. And my cardinal is making my life terrible, and he's trying to be king himself. And I can't seem to deal with that. The way it works in a lot of places, you have the king and you have the cardinal.
It's a muscle.
It's a parable, it's right.
It really happened.
It's a mashal that Rabbi Nachman's Talmidim bring in his name. And so the king says, you need to do something about this cardinal, you need to make it disappear. So he says, but that's not what I do. I can steal, but I can't do this. I don't make people disappear. Find somebody else to do that. The king says, no, you're supposed to do this. If you came to my front doorstep like this, at this time, it must be you. And you must work out something. So the Ani says, okay, give me a few days. And then he says, okay, I'll do it. And what he does is he says, you have to give me a lot of crabs. Here, by the way, they're crabs. Sometimes you walk in Akko and you see the Arabs over here, they fished out different crabs. They eat them. And so I need a lot of crabs. And I need a lot of candles. And I need the exact clothes that the cardinal wears. And he went to the big cathedral in the middle of the night, and when the cardinal walked in, he was by himself, and Ani, the guy who his mazel is to be the Ganav, is standing there in the middle, dressed like the cardinal, and the cardinal's looking, and he sees on the floor, he sees the candles moving like this, because he had put candles onto each separate crab, and the crabs walk in a very funny way to the side. And so the cardinal's not exactly sure what's going on, and then the Ani says to him, I am you. I am the cardinal. And I have been doing some terrible things by trying to overthrow the king. And the only way that my sins can be forgiven is if I pick up and leave and never come back again. And the cardinal got really, really scared, and he managed, I guess, to steal his identity in some way. And the cardinal gets up, packs up, and leaves, and never comes back again. And so this is the end of that story.
Well,
And there's a lot of archetypes over here. Now,
damn you.
I made there's a handout over here. It has the 12.
It's like lending self.
Sorry.
Lying you.
He became the father.
What? Something like that.
Okay, this story, by the way, it's a transformational story. It works on a subconscious level, and for a lot of us, it'll take a few days to kind of reverberate the story in our minds, and things will click. Now, what I wanted to focus in more on is just there's a lot of stuff we can speak about. The story you can speak about for days, but I just want to focus in just a little bit about the archetypes that we see that are involved. This over here, these 12 archetypes. Jung, by the way, Carl Jung, the complete works of Jung is 20 books. It's a whole bookshelf, and he doesn't speak about these. There's no place where he brings the list of these 12 archetypes. He speaks about the archetypes in different places. It's actually a little difficult sometimes to read him because I had a dream and there was a big cathedral and a big turd fell out from the heavens, and it's very hard to. It's a lot of information that he gives. It's hard to kind of bring out anything that you can maybe use clinically or use for yourself. But he mentions these archetypes. There's a woman called Carol Peterson who brings down this list of 12. I tweaked it to fit more the way I see these archetypes. Now,
Is it been clear that there are 12?
oh, has it been clear that there are 12? Yeah, so to put it into 12, by the way, it kind of maybe they're more, maybe they're 15. The 12 fit very nicely, and they also will fit into the zodiac with tweaks. You can't just kind of take it and kind of line it up with any other list. It doesn't always fit in, and some of these archetypes maybe look like they contain more than one. Now, actually, the way I connected initially to IFS was through the archetypes that IFS uses. Because whenever we name parts and we call them the compliant part, the law-abiding part, or the romanticizer, or the people pleaser, you are evoking an archetype. Okay, these are, anytime you label, you're usually connecting it to an archetype. And so what I did over here in this list is I tried to, my primary tool when I sit with clients is IFS. And I use Jungian archetypes a little bit with certain clients. And so I just want to ask you guys, which archetypes do you see in the story that I just told you when you look at this list? Which archetypes kind of stick out? What? No crab. Yeah, the crab kind of.
The crab would be what's it called?
The crab would be Cancer.
Oh, the shapeshifter. Yeah.
So shapeshifters, right? There's a lot of shapeshifter in there. He has to he's standing between being it's the shapeshifter innocent kind of polarization. Oh, there's also some rebel in this. This polarization between the innocent and the rebel shapeshifter on the other side is what we can really feel in the story going through.
Also caregiver, because the whole reason he stole was to take care
Oh,
of his
very
grandmother.
good. Now, for a lot of people, by the way, the story doesn't sit very well at all. I think for most of us, that's I think the genius and the transformative abilities of the story. It hits you in a very crass way and kind of, well, he's becoming a thief. It doesn't make sense.
And there was even a happy ending.
There is a happy ending. Yes, there is a happy ending. I do kind of wonder about all those people he stole from along the way. Maybe he should. The end of the story is actually that the king gave him a lot of money for what he did.
Yes.
Now he can take that money and pay those people, I guess.
Those people saw him doing it anyway, it was really stuck up. They were giving it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But he's stealing it. But it's that kind you have to give on your own. There's one of my favorite quotes from Jung. I see it's not on this one, but on some of them I printed it. Can you see it at the bottom of the page? Right. No tree can grow to heaven unless the roots reach down to hell. It's a whole. There's a system over here, and there's a lot of our parts that are in our shadow, and you can't just ignore them and just be with the innocent. Life doesn't allow that. If I can maybe connect this to the parasha also. You also connected it yesterday. Yaakov goes and steals the brachas. Yaakov is an ish tam. The Torah specifically says he is the number one archetype. He is the innocent. But everything in his life is shapeshift the rebel. Everything he does, he goes and he tricks Yitzchak as if he's Esav, and he steals the brachas. And then later on, when he's working by Lavan, he also keeps on tricking him. Lavan tries to trick him, so he tricks him back. And you see the trickery going all through the way. And he's forced into it. And this is really, our lives, as much as we want to live like the sheep. We all have that part that wants to be the sheep, live and just follow the herd and kind of, just be, relaxed and do things normally. But life doesn't allow us to do that. And that's what we see in the story. He was forced into it. Now, I can tell you, I can give you an example. People ask me a lot, how do you use this on a clinical level? It kind of sounds philosophical, and for a lot of us, the archetypes kind of seem weird in a way. And let me tell you a story about a client of mine. I call him Ehud. It's not his real name, but Ehud, he's a middle-aged man, and he was always a very religious guy, and he was living in Bnei Brak as a regular from guy. He wasn't really living there. I don't want to give information, and he's going out to Tel Aviv on a regular basis and hooking up with random women in Tel Aviv, and then coming back to his married life with his wife and kids. Which archetype does that sound like? Again, the shapeshifter. He's really describing shapeshifter behavior. And
We're explorer.
oh yeah, definitely. That too. And now he's sitting with me, and this is in his past, and he's feeling so much regret about what he's been doing. And so I told him, just yeah, it's behind. If it was now, then there'd be a different way to deal with. But now it's in the past. It's much easier to do what I did. Just a warning, maybe. Using the word archetype with clients is not that easy to use. It sounds like a funny word, and so you can use a symbol, a story, a collective story, but to use the word archetype, it doesn't always work. With this client, actually, he was very Jungian in the way he thought, and I felt I could bring him towards this. And so I told him there's an archetype called the shapeshifter. And I said, for example, Ehud ben Gera. Ehud ben Gera, who was one of the Shuftim in the book of Judges, he's the second judge. And the nation of Israel has a problem with the people of Moab. And so Ehud goes to the king, Eglon, of Moab, and he says, I have something to tell you, Your Highness. I have a message from God, and I need to tell you it alone. So Eglon says to everybody, leave the room, leave me with this guy with Ehud. And then he takes out his double-edged sword, and he stabs him in his stomach. And Eglon's so fat that it just goes all the way deep into his stomach, and he kills him like that. And when he leaves, he says to the guards, don't worry, the king's in the bathroom. He'll need some time, and that gives him enough time to run away. So we could also see the shapeshifter behavior with Ehud. Shapeshifter means you have two stances that you're standing on. He's also kind of he comes as a regular person with a message from God, but he's also a killer in secret. and he has the double-edged sword. This is another, like shapeshifter's weapon, right? That it cuts on both sides.
He's also left-handed, right?
He's also left-handed. Yeah, so we have to see how that fits in exactly.
Eglon was also two-sided when he's leading the war against the Klal Yisrael. When he heard that there's Dvar Hashem.
Oh, that's also very
he
interesting.
pointed at it,
Oh,
he stood up with one of
oh, we're going into the depths over
The
here.
grandfather of Shmuel?
Of Ruth, yeah.
Ruth, right.
So we have this. So you see with Ehud. So I said to my client, which I call Ehud. So you can see there's this shapeshifter behavior. So you've written chapter 1, 2, and 3 of your life. I'm looking forward to see what 4, 5, and 6 are going to be. Let's see how this plays out in the rest of your life. And when you read a book, usually the chapters at the beginning lead on to the chapters later on. And this was very transformative for my client to hear this, that it took away the guilt very quickly. There's something beautiful about Jungian psychology, and it's that you have this compassion, this natural compassion for this natural kind of acceptance for all these things, for all these behaviors that might be morally questionable. It really, but the roots have to go down into hell. So Jungian psychology, by the way, is different than IFS, in that Jungian psychology has an external map of reality, whereas in IFS we don't. We don't tell the client what he should be thinking, what he should be believing, right? We let him kind of work it out with himself and work with his own parts without, there are no rules. Whereas with Jungian psychology, you do have certain rules. You do have some sort of external map of reality, which is sometimes very helpful. Simple thing, I'm sure maybe some of us do that. I have a client who's complaining about his wife. She's always chaotic. It's always chaos with her. I come and I bring order, and she's always all over the place. So I started speaking to him about yin and yang, how they connect the feminine side and the masculine side, and that the feminine side is more of the chaos, and the masculine side is more of the order, the organizing it. In Jungian language, it's the anima and the animus. The anima is the feminine side, and the connect with what you said yesterday, and the masculine is the animus. And so that really organized things by him. And so a lot of times we do use also this external map of reality. Now, I was thinking, I did wanted to kind of divide us into dyads. Still have some time, yeah? I want to divide us into dyads and think of maybe 2 questions over here. One, how does what I said over here, how does it sit with our parts? Because this triggers us on many levels. By the way, it might also trigger some of us from a religious point of view. What did I connect over here? I connected a lot of archetypes to Torah. I personally don't believe that Torah and other archetypes are on the same level. Torah has a much clearer path. But there's this question of maybe that also triggers us, and also kind of breaking. There's a lot of rule breaking over here that God might sit not okay with us, and maybe some of us have skeptical parts that are like, this is very weird. So I would like to kind of discuss that, how it affects our parts, and also which of these archetypes maybe speak to us. Okay, is that okay to? Would you divide it per diet, or would you? Let's. Okay. Okay, again, question. Karusa, question number 1, how does that affect our parts? And question number 2, of which archetypes speak to us?